the satellites saying, Victor?
Right now, not a goddamn thing. I've lost the signal.
Hey, you know what never loses signal? Paper.
Hey guys, I'm Spencer. I'm here with Nick Plessas, who got to play a little bit of Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, which is super exciting. I'm a little bit jealous. So I guess to start off, do you want to talk about what is Uncharted 4 for people who don't know?
Yeah, they gave us a little presentation when we first got there, and it set up the historical intrigue. You know, every Uncharted needs that historical, drive. This time, we're after Captain Avery. He was considered, like, in the golden age of piracy, he was considered like the king of pirates. Even though his name isn't that popular, he was like, one of the biggest outlaws of that time, specifically because he took over this one ship that had like the biggest treasure ever, stolen basically. And that's the treasure that Nathan is after. No one figured out where that treasure went. But that's the sort of historical stance.
So you're going after some pirate treasure.
Some pirate treasure.
Yeah, okay. Well, something that I noticed in the clips that I saw, there's a lot of focus on exploration in this game. More so than I think any other game in the series.
Yeah. One of the biggest differences between this game compared to the ones before it is the areas are extremely broad that you can explore in. Previous Uncharted is very linear. And the hidden treasures that you would pick up for collectible reasons, they were all along generally the same path.
Yeah.
It was linear, and it gave that feeling of exploration, but you were always had a very distinctive direction. This one, that direction is still there, but the linear path is significantly wider. And it gives this really interesting sense of being open world until you explore for a while and you realize that you are being directed, but it's in this very fluid way. So you can spend several, I don't want to say hours, but a long time in these areas and not make a ton of progress, but discover a lot. It's like hidden, really interesting natural phenomenon, like caves behind waterfalls.
Yeah.
Treasure that'll unlock interesting things. And then, of course, just the exploration. These games are just so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like
oh my God, it's so pretty.
That in of itself can drive you to explore.
Yeah. So, and the way that you get around is you're driving a car, which you've never done in an Uncharted game before this. Usually, you're in the gunner's seat, but now you're in the driver's seat. And how does that control? What is that like?
It's interesting. They put a surprising amount of effort into the design, so it controls similarly to, other third-person driving controls, just the feel of it. But, like, there'll be mud, and your car will operate differently in the mud. It'll operate differently when you're going up a hill. So far as to say that they incorporate a level of, like, puzzle platforming into it, where there'll be, like, a really steep, muddy hill with, strategically placed rocks going up it, and you have to sort of drive on the rocks because you lose traction if you hit the mud, and you'll slide back down.
Yeah, it's funny. It looks like you're still controlling a character when you're driving the car.
Right.
Like, it's not like you're just controlling a car. You're kind of maneuvering an environment, which is really, and with different types of terrain. Something else that's interesting about those exploration kind of areas is the character. That's where a lot of the character building comes in. There's a lot of, like, chatter between them that's context sensitive to what's around them. They'll be like, oh, this bridge is really rickety and stuff like that, and they'll kind of have banter back and forth between the characters, like Drake and Sully just kind of throwing insults at each other, and it's a pretty fun way to build the characters from what I've seen.
Yeah, now Uncharted 4 will still, of course, have those, like, really big cinematics, but a lot of the story is, like you're saying, coming through these smaller, more personal conversations that they have just on your way. And one thing that I just found fascinating is you'll be driving along, let's say, and characters will be having a conversation. If you stop the car to get out and explore, that character will stop at the point in his conversation that you get out, and he'll be like, and he'll stutter. He'll be like saying something. He'll be like, I guess you're going. And Nathan will respond to him, being like, I'm going to explore this. And then once you get back, the character will be like, okay, can I continue? Like kind of snarky. And Nathan will be like, yes. And his conversation will continue exactly from that point. And it doesn't matter like at what point in the conversation, it's not rigid in any way. It's like it's a super fluid conversation, like you would, very organic, like you would actually have with someone.
Yeah.
And you can also miss out on these conversations. For example, if you go away from the car while they're having a conversation, they won't. Sometimes they won't continue that conversation when you get back. Like they've already had it.
Yeah, they'll leave you out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You kind of missed out on that opportunity. So it's like gives a lot of reason to pay attention to what's going on, and even multiple playthroughs to see if you missed anything the first time around.
Okay, so like there's a lot of really cool exploring and like talking amongst people, but when you get down to it, Uncharted is a game about shooting people. So
Screw story. I want violence.
Well, come on.
I want violence and death.
So what is the shooting people like in Uncharted?
My initial impression was that it is similar.
To previous Uncharted games?
To previous Uncharted games, yeah. Until you start kind of getting the hang of it, you can play it like previous Uncharted games, and you might not appreciate what is being offered to you. But if you take a second to acknowledge what's there, there's a couple key mechanics that are new. First of all, there's a bigger emphasis on stealth, primarily with that kind of mechanic. I want to say like Assassin's Creed, where there are kind of zones that you are in stealth, like tall weeds, stuff like that, where if you're in that, you're in stealth. And complementing that is, of course, a new threat indicator, where enemies will, they'll be seeing you and their threat indicator will raise up, and then they hit a yellow suspicious state where they're actually searching for something, and then they have an orange hostile state once they actually see you, and then combat opens up.
Yeah, and it seems like it really opens up to all these really interesting moments where, like, there's this tense part that I saw where you're climbing up, like, a watchtower, and there's a sniper at the top, and you're, like, stealthing your way to the top. And once you make it up there, you're able to get kind of a vantage point on everyone, and that's where you can start marking enemies and really, like, figuring out how you're going to approach the battle. Like, so it's so cool that you can start out in stealth and then kind of choose when you engage and the prime location to engage the enemies from. That's a really neat way to approach the game.
How the game reacts to what you do is very dynamic. So, for example, in my situation, the reinforcements that showed up in my playthrough, those won't always necessarily come. It depends on where you go hot, how many enemies are dead before they realize that you're there. Multiple factors come into just scenarios in which you would just expect that to just be programmed that way. Okay, like at this point, enemies will come and that's just the way it is. It's like it's not necessarily like that. And it's in a way that whereas in most games you're like, okay, I don't want enemies to come, so I won't do this, or this. It's just how the game develops.
So cool.
It's a really interesting way to just like reward multiple playthroughs and different play styles. They introduced a lot more. They completely reworked all the combat, that hand-to-hand combat, new animations and new programming behind it. So, like you say, your teammates will come grab a guy, beat on them, or your enemy will grab your teammates and you have to save them, or vice, different situations like that. There is the rope swing, which is one of the biggest one of the biggest new tools that Nathan has in his arsenal, and that can be used to like swing from different points and climb up to high points, climb down from points that you can't just jump off from. And then there's other more rigid contextual options, like at one point I go down like a zip line. And so these battles are both very open and have all these new options to create this mix that like in each, like every element in of itself isn't super original, but when it comes all together in the base formula of Uncharted, it creates something really, really fun. And yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun.
Oh, that sounds really great. The game comes out
May 10th.
All right. Well, if you like the video, feel free to like the video. And
If you like the video, like the video.
Yeah,
I feel like,
subscribe to see more videos. We've got more coming out, I'm sure. And comment with any questions, and we'll do our best to get back to you. And be sure and go to egmnow.com to get all your news, reviews, previews, everything Uncharted and all other video games. And thank you for watching.